You know what's better than a backdoor Roth?
Oh, an apex predator.
How about a mega backdoor Roth conversion? This is strategy number 2 that we see a lot of our high net worth, high income clients carry out, and you can carry it out too. Now, where this is a little bit different than backdoor Roth contributions is this one specifically has to take place inside of your 401k, inside of your employer-sponsored retirement plan.
Yeah, this is one where I think people, and the government did this as well, is they're like, we're going to give them these tax-free growth opportunities with these IRAs, but we'll make sure it's somewhat digestible, whether it's $7,000 in your IRA or $23,000 through your employer 401k, and then some brilliant person figured out that, oh my gosh, once again, with this Roth conversion provision having no income limits and really no caps, how about if we structured a retirement plan, an employer retirement plan, where it took and figured out how do we maximize the entire 415 limit of the $69,000, and voila, an apex predator was created called mega backdoor Roth conversions. I'll let Bo give you the actual details, but I wanted you to at least have the children's story narrative so you kind of know how this all happened.
So most people know that when it comes to putting money in a 401k, you generally have 2 options. You can do pre-tax or you can do Roth. Well, there is a third option called after tax. Now, after tax is different than Roth, even though they sound the same. Both pre-tax and Roth contributions are limited to the salary deferral limits, which in 2024, for those under 50, is $23,000. However, if you're able to contribute to the after-tax bucket, you can actually go all the way up to those 415 limits that Brian said. So you can do $23,000 of pre-tax contributions, and then you can take the remainder all the way up to $69,000 as after-tax 401k contributions. Well, when you do that, what that allows you to do is fill up your whole bucket. So a total of $69,000 a year can be put into your 401k, and that's a combination of salary deferrals that you put in, plus employer contributions that you put in. We'll talk more about that in a moment, plus the after-tax contributions. Well, if you're putting in after-tax contributions in there, one of the great things you can do, if your plan allows for in-service conversions or in-service rollovers, is you can actually immediately roll those contributions, those after-tax dollars you put in, into a Roth IRA. What you have effectively done at that time is taken after-tax 401k contributions and converted into Roth completely tax-free.
So in theory, if you take out all the other variables we're about to go through that kind of lowers this down a little bit, but in theory, you could actually make a $69,000 Roth contribution in through a mega backdoor Roth.
That's insane.
It's insane. And by the way, if you're just a calculator nerd and you want to just go put in annual contributions of $69,000, holy cow, this is a big deal. But there's some catches, and it's probably, so let's talk about, can you do it and what are the things to watch for?
The very first thing is, does your plan allow for in-service distributions or in-plan conversions? Because the way that the after-tax bucket normally works is if you were to put money into the after-tax bucket and just let it be invested, those dollars are going to grow tax deferred. And when you go to pull them out in retirement, you'll get your contributions back tax free, but all the earnings would be taxed. It is the in-service conversion or in-service rollover that allows you to turn those dollars into Roth dollars. And Roth dollars are the dollars that are truly tax-free. So you need to make sure, in addition to having an after-tax 401k contribution option, it also has an in-service distribution or in-plan conversion offer.
And then the other thing on if you can do this requires a lot of money. Meaning you have to have a big shovel, a big income. This is not something that right as you're coming, right out of college and you're starting your first job. That's why we talked about doing Roth contributions are step 5 elements. I think this is more advanced planning. This is getting into step 7 and maybe even beyond. You have to have a big cash flow to be able to even contribute at these levels.
Okay, so now let's talk about, if that's how you do it, when should you do it? When does this make sense? Well, again, this is one of those, if you can, then you likely should, but you really have to define if you can. And you just went through, do you have a lot of income? Because to be able to save that much in a qualified retirement account, it takes a pretty big shovel. And then you need to also be aware of the times when maybe this doesn't make sense. Here's some reasons why you shouldn't do this. Number one, and this is a big one, if you fill up your 415 limit, if you get all $69,000 in there before your employer is able to put their matching contributions into your 401k, you know what happens? You just missed out on a match. You missed out on free money. And remember, step 2 of the financial order of operations is employer match. So you want to make sure that you're not crowding out any matching money, any safe harbor money, or any profit sharing money. So you need to have a decent understanding of the dollars that your employer is also putting into your plan.
Yeah, I think that this is a big one, is that you want to make sure you're leaving enough room. And a lot of times those profit sharing contributions won't come in until the following year after you have to kind of make a guesstimate of how much your employer is going to give you and leave enough at the top. Just like when you go to a cup of coffee, they say, do you need room for cream? You're like, yeah, I need room for employer match and profit sharing in the way you do your mega backdoor Roth. The second thing that you got to think about is, because I've seen this, small business owners. A lot of times you'll wonder, why do I not see this on the tax returns for more small business owners? Well, what happens is if you own a company and you get to design the plan, when you add the profit sharing provision, or you might add even a cash balance plan, you're trying to maximize the deductible contributions. You're in those tippity top tax rates, like 37% marginal federally. Yep. And then maybe if you live in a state like California, you're even in some of those tax rates like 13%. So you can see 50 cents on the dollar is going towards taxes. So why not try to see if we can lower that? And through proper plan design, a good small business owner can probably design a 401k with a profit sharing provision, and then put a cash balance plan, and then get a lot bigger deductible contributions that the government's essentially going to fund half of it through tax savings. You're going to go down that path. So where do we actually see this more often is usually the very highly compensated executives or W-2 employees for big companies. So that's where I've typically seen this. You don't see it as much for small business owners because you'd prefer to have the deductible contributions.
The other area or other time when maybe you don't want to do this, again, is if you're not 100% sure you're doing it right. Because frankly, this can get complicated. Some employers will let you set it up where it happens automatically, but a lot of times you'll have to make a phone call. And even when you go to make that phone call to the in-plan conversion, a lot of times if you've had after-tax contributions, there's some earnings component. And so when you do your distribution, you may have to roll the after-tax contributions to a Roth, but then you might have to roll the earnings into a traditional IRA. Well, if you did that and you're doing regular backdoor Roths, now you violated the pro rata rule. So then you have to have a system to get those dollars from the traditional IRA back into your 401k. So there are a lot of logistics that go into this. Again, if backdoor Roths is checkers, mega backdoor Roths is 3D chess. So you want to make sure you really understand what you're doing. If you don't, this might be a great time to seek professional help to make sure you're carrying these transactions out correctly and to make sure they're reflected correctly on your tax return when you go to file your taxes next year.
I mean, it really is a shepherding of the process. Like I have a doctor client that we basically every year have to kind of nudge the employer, which the doctor is very, very involved with that. We then have to nudge the custodian. Mm-hmm. Then we have to follow up because there's a lot of steps that are going through there. And then the other thing I think is unique is every one of these is through a unique plan design, meaning all retirement plans have plan documents and they're all written a little bit differently. So one plan will allow you to do in-plan conversions, meaning they're actually going to handle this mega backdoor Roth conversion opportunity. Whereas another one might just allow in-plan distribution, in-service distributions where you don't have to be retired to take a distribution and you're going to do this manually on your own. So all that just adds an element. It's a great planning opportunity, but there's also a lot of traps or missteps you can make, and we just want to make sure you go into this with your eyes wide open because this can get complicated.